Welcome to another deep dive. We love to take a single piece of writing or art and kind of just explore it, see where it takes us.
Really kind of unpack it and see what we find.
Exactly, yeah. Today, it's a French poem.
Ooh la la.
It's called Pleurer aujourd'hui, which means to cry today. And it's about, well, not being able to cry. Even when you feel like you really need to. You know that feeling? Like a lump in your throat, your heart's heavy, but the tears just won't come.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that feeling when you're just choked up with emotion.
Yeah, it's like there's all this pressure building up inside, but no release. I think this poem captures that really well. To really get into it, I'm going to read it in French first, and we can hear the English translation and, dive into what it all means.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, here goes. Reads the poem in French.
Beautiful. Haunting, even. Okay, so for everyone out there who doesn't speak French, here's the translation. We've tried to keep it as true to the original as possible while still making it flow in English. Here's how it goes. I try to cry. I try to search within myself for the slightest tear that wants to flow, but there are none left. I have exhausted them, and as much as my heart may grumble and roar, I find within me no drop to pour out.
Wow. I mean, it's so short, but it just hits you right in the chest,
It really does. There's so much packed into those few lines.
Yeah, like that first line, I try to cry. It's so direct, so desperate. The speaker's actively trying to make themselves cry, but they can't.
Right. And then it's like they're searching for any little drop of a tear, any sign of release, but they're completely empty. They say, I have exhausted them. Like even their tears are tired, spent.
It's almost like they've cried so much that there's nothing left, or maybe something is blocking the tears from coming out.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder what led to this point? What happened that caused this kind of emotional drought?
Right. Like, is it grief, trauma, or maybe it's something more subtle, like years of holding everything in? Society telling you that crying is weak or something.
Yeah, absolutely. The poem doesn't give us a specific reason, which I think is part of what makes it so powerful. It lets us fill in the blanks with our own experiences, and that means it can resonate with so many different people for so many different reasons.
Totally. And then there's that image of the heart grumbling and roaring is like this raw, primal feeling that's trapped inside.
I love that image. It suggests so much power, so much intensity, but it's all bottled up. It can't find a way out.
It's like a volcano about to erupt, but instead of lava,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be tears, but they aren't coming.
Right. And that brings up another interesting point. Is it healthy to hold all of that in? Do we need that release, like a pressure valve? What happens when that valve gets stuck?
It's a good question. I mean, we all know that bottling up emotions isn't good for you. It can manifest in all sorts of ways, physically and mentally.
Absolutely. So maybe this poem is a kind of warning, a reminder that we need to find healthy ways to express what we're feeling, even if those feelings are really, really difficult.
Right. And even if crying isn't an option in that moment, there are other ways to process and release those emotions.
Totally. And something else I love about this poem is the language. It's so simple, so straightforward.
Yeah. Like there's no fancy metaphors or anything. It's just raw, pure emotion.
And yet it's so effective, especially that repetition of j'essaie de do. I try to.
Yeah, it emphasizes the struggle. Like they're really trying to access those tears, but something is stopping them.
And that brings us back to the question of why those tears aren't coming. Maybe it's not even that they're being held back, but that they're just not there, like the well has run dry.
That's a really interesting thought. And it makes me think about how sometimes we just don't have the capacity to feel everything at once.
Exactly. Sometimes it's a process. It takes time to work through those really intense emotions.
So even though this poem is about not being able to cry, maybe it's also about the journey of finding other ways to feel, to express, to heal.
I think so. And I think it's a journey that we all go on in our own way.
That's a really beautiful way to put it. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we?
We have, from grief and societal pressures to emotional exhaustion and the power of simple language.
We've even touched on the idea that sometimes it's okay not to cry, that maybe there are other ways to process what we're feeling. So here's something for you all to think about. What happens when the tears won't come? What are your outlets? How do you find release when that pressure valve gets stuck? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
And in the meantime, remember, even in the silence of unshed tears, there's a story waiting to be told.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.